This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of world-class software like PDF Pen for Mac, PDF Pen Pro for Mac, PDF Pen for iPhone and iPad, PDF Pen Scan Plus for iPhone and iPad, Text Expander for Mac, and Text Expander for iPhone and iPad. Learn more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. And by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome back to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it seems like we've been talking to Joe Kissell a lot recently, which is great because it gives us all these great new books to look at. This time is I think it may actually be unique because Joe has updated not one, not two, not three, but 4 of his books. But these are not the Take Control books that you're familiar with. These are the Joe on Tech books that you should be familiar with. So with that, Mr. Joe Kissell. Joe, it's great to have you back. You're a machine, man.
You and I were talking before the show started about some challenges that we've both had in recent weeks and some interruptions in our schedules and things that have gone wrong and so forth. And I just feel like, from my point of view, I feel like, man, I've gotten nothing done these last couple of weeks. I feel like such a slacker. I am so far behind on everything. And so, unfortunately, all I have is these 4 books.
That's a shame, Joe.
I really, honestly, though, there should be more. If I had met certain deadlines a few weeks ago, which I was late on, then we would have even more to talk about. But life is complicated and things happen. So there we are. Anyhow, I have updates to the 4 current Joe on Tech titles. So this is Backing Up Your Mac version 2.1, Maintaining Your Mac version 1.2, Troubleshooting Your Mac version 1.1, and Speeding Up Your Mac version 1.1. I can't even remember these versions because there are too many of them. They all jumbled together. But basically, these are all 0.1 sorts of updates, and the main reason that they exist is simply for Sierra compatibility. The books all came out at different times, and most of them have had updates, but they were all a little bit skewed with respect to what they covered. And now I finally had this moment where the planets just aligned, and I was able to get all 4 of them completely up to date with all the new stuff in Sierra. So hopefully they will now have, I don't know if they'll have a year's shelf life, but anyway, longer than they would have otherwise before I have to do yet another major revision. So all 4 titles are freshly updated for Sierra. There are some other little fixes and additions, but that is definitely the main thing.
And that's a huge thing because now Sierra's out and people are playing with it, people are downloading and installing it, and things in places are a little bit different. And so you need to know where to go to optimize your experience, to solve some of the problems, and to do all the regular stuff that you need to do to maintain your Mac's health and your operating system's health.
Well, it's interesting. You used the word optimize, and optimize turns out to be the operative word for all 4 of these books because one of the new features in Sierra, and we talked about this in the Upgrading to Sierra book, is optimized storage. Optimized storage isn't really one feature, it's more of a collection of features, but it allows you to do things like store certain stuff in iCloud and have it downloaded, either removed from your Mac if you're running out of space or downloaded when needed, automatically empty the trash or remove items from the trash after they've been there for a while, and do some other sort of housekeeping stuff to get rid of old files, large files, things you don't need. Well, it turns out that optimized storage is relevant in one way or another to all 4 of these books. For example, in terms of the backups book, I have this topic about, well, if you're finding that you're running out of space on your backup drive, or backups are just taking too long or whatever, one of the things you might want to think about is maybe I could get rid of some stuff on my disk that I don't need in the first place, then I won't have to back it up. So optimized storage can help with that. Certainly in terms of maintaining your Mac, speeding it up, and even to some extent troubleshooting, you can, you certainly don't want to run out of disk space. That would be a bad thing. And optimized storage can help you with that. Now, there are also some things about optimized storage I'm not really crazy about. But and I have to say too, in typical Apple fashion, optimized storage makes certain things really, really easy, but also has very little flexibility. So compared to something like Hazel, so like optimized storage and Hazel can both remove stuff from your trash after a certain period of time. But Hazel is really customizable and gives you a lot of control over what happens when and under what circumstances, whereas with optimized storage, it's just on or off. It's just basically a checkbox. And there are lots of other tools that can uninstall apps and that can show you old and large files and things like that and give you a lot of control over what kinds of things are deleted and when, and optimized storage really doesn't. So it's nice that it's there, but it's less powerful than some other tools that you might consider. I'm not saying not to use it, but I'm saying you want to know what it does and then consider whether that will meet your needs. And if not, then fine, move on to something else. So in all of these books, I talk about the new stuff in Sierra, some, changes to disk utility and changes to, I'm just looking at my list here, some changes to continuity features and a couple of things that have been added, a couple of things have been removed. But these aren't huge updates. They're just, I just wanted them to be absolutely current and incorporate some of these new and removed things to help people have a reference that is totally up to date.
Today's edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of world-class software. Software like PDF Pen, available in various flavors for Mac and iOS, PDF Pen Scan Plus for iOS, and Text Expander for Mac and iOS. Get all the details at smilesoftware.com. Smile has updated PDF Pen to version 8.1 with some new and useful enhancements to help you place objects in your PDF documents with ease and accuracy. Visible guidelines help you line up and position text and graphics and other objects. To make things even easier, these guides can snap into place to be sure what you want to place is exactly where you want to place it. Because PDFs aren't just about text. PDF Pen Pro adds those same guides, as well as preserving tab order after saving your documents. These enhancements just add to all of the PDF Pen and PDF Pen Pro features we've talked about before. Features like optical character recognition to make the text in PDF documents editable, secure redaction of documents, the ability to move, resize, or delete images from the original PDF, recording and playback of audio comments, exporting to Microsoft Word, and many more. It may seem like a simple feature, but I just use PDF Pen's ability to add, rearrange, and delete pages in PDF documents on a 130-page document that needed to be edited before being distributed. It was a snap with PDF Pen. Right now, you can try PDF Pen for yourself for free by visiting smilesoftware.com and downloading a trial version. Once you know what PDF Pen can do for you, buy directly from Smile and take command of your PDF documents. That's PDF Pen from Smile at smilesoftware.com, the makers of world-class software. Try it and you won't want to go back. Thanks to Smile as the longest-running sponsor of MacVoices. Joe, is this another case of Apple adding functions that are very useful? And obviously they're useful because some developers have already come out with programs that have some of this. Those are a much higher, because they're standalone apps, they have a fine degree of control and a lot of options and everything. And it feels like Apple is indeed advancing the operating system, and I want to take nothing away from that. But once again, it's built more for the whatever average user means. But the one that's not going to not interested in running a utility just to uninstall or just to, like you say, optimize the storage so you don't have to empty your trash. So
For sure.
I guess this kind of feels to me like, like iMovie as opposed to Final Cut. And to some of the other utilities we've talked about, Preview versus, say, PDF Pen Pro. That there are different levels here. That takes nothing away from either one of the sides of the coin. It just means they're different sides of the coin.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. This is Apple's way. Sometimes, you gave the example of iMovie, but there is also Final Cut Pro. You gave the example of, I was thinking of an example that you didn't.
Well, go ahead. No, great.
I was thinking of TextEdit. Okay.
Great
There's TextEdit, but there is also Pages. So there are cases like this where Apple makes a sort of lower end tool, but also a higher end tool for those who want it. This particular realm of optimized storage is not one of those cases. It's a place where, like Preview. Okay, so Preview does what it does, and it does a lot. But PDF Pen does more, and Acrobat Pro does more. So if you get to the point where Preview doesn't do what you need, then you go buy one of these other apps. But Preview is really great for a lot of things. So this is very much a let's make certain useful features available to everyone, but in so doing, we're going to make those sort of as easy to use, as uncomplicated as we can with an asterisk, and not try to do these power user things. So this asterisk, it is incomprehensible to me that the interface, the controls for working with optimized storage are in the System Information app. System Information app is inside the Utilities folder, which is inside your Applications folder. And previously, the only purpose of this app was to give you system information, was to tell you things like, how much RAM do I have and which devices do I have installed and what extensions and apps and things do I have installed and what other versions and all that. It gave you system information. So Apple's going to now give you the capability of modifying behavior and changing your preferences. Where would this stuff naturally go? Well, system preferences would be a really logical place for it, but no. Or maybe a standalone utility, or maybe even build it into disk utility, because they are kind of disk tasks. Some of them involve, mail, some of them involve iTunes, or as I say, it could have been a standalone app. But no, Apple chose the weirdest, least obvious place to put these capabilities. And there are shortcuts to get there. You don't have to dig through to that app in that folder to get at the features. There are other ways to do it, but still, that's just weird. It's weird and it's annoying. And Apple has stuffed everything in the kitchen sink into iTunes, but you can kind of see, each thing that was added to iTunes at that moment that it was added, there was sort of a story that made sense. But adding actual, preferences and background tasks to an app that has only ever told you information just is bizarro to me.
Joe, I want to be real careful so I don't scare anyone. But is it because some of these capabilities are potentially dangerous in the sense that if you flip something on, it's not easy to flip off, or it's not easy to undo, if at all possible, to undo what they do. And so Apple wanted to hide this a little bit, and so that you really had to go look for it and really, theoretically, know what you're doing before you turn it on?
I don't think. I mean, you could kind of say that about some of the optimized storage features, like the automatically deleting things from your trash might match that description.
Yeah, that's kind of what jumped to my mind.
But during the installation of Sierra, you are prompted to turn on storing your documents and desktop folders in iCloud, and that's a default choice. Unless you take action to uncheck that, it will happen. And that kind of scares me. I mean, we talked about this before, how number one, it could use up a lot of storage, which could cost you money. Number two, if you have some files that are moved to the cloud, but then you find yourself without an internet connection, or something goes wrong on Apple's servers and the files disappear, or there is an internet outage, or what, like there are all these different circumstances in which you could lose access to your stuff. Those sorts of things strike me as very dangerous, and possibly even more so than emptying the trash. So you could be right in some sense, but Apple is certainly trying really, really hard to get you to use at least some of the optimized storage features, and I kind of wish they didn't.
Yeah, and I'm not trying, I guess, to defend Apple. I guess I'm asking that there may be a reason. At the end of the day, that's where they are, and you're going to need to learn where they are if you're going to use them.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, we would spend a lot more time with each book kind of digging into the particular topic, but since we're trying to make sure that folks know that all these books are out there as they start working through their Sierra experience, any really important things in one book or the other, any big gotchas that one book or the other addresses?
I'm looking over my lists here. One of the things, I'll just mention a couple of things for most of the books. In the backups book, I've had a couple of people write to me and say, well, I'm with you on the whole, backup strategy, but what about this situation? And one of the things that keeps coming up is this concept of ransomware. So ransomware, of course, is a type of malware that basically encrypts everything on your disk and then forces you to pay a ransom to decrypt it, or else your files are deleted forever. And there are some ransomware apps for Mac. It's really mostly on Windows. But when this first started coming up, I'm like, that's not even interesting. Like, so if I got ransomware on my Mac and it encrypted everything and I couldn't get at it, then screw them. I'll just wipe it and restore everything from a backup because I got lots of backups, and end of story. But then some ransomware apps started getting smarter and doing things to explicitly defeat that strategy. So one of the things is they might encrypt not only the things on your hard disk or your SSD, but anything on external volumes that are connected to your computer as well. And the second thing, which is really devious and honestly quite clever, is sometimes you'll download them, get this infestation of malware, but then the malware will wait a few days before it activates. The idea being that if you restore from a backup from yesterday, that's in between when the malware got onto your computer and when you notice the problem, so it'll just run again and re-encrypt over. So you can only restore if you go back to a much earlier point before the malware was even on your computer in the first place. So even so, backups can deal with all of these problems, but they're just a little bit, you have to be aware of certain things and how this sort of malware could work and what sorts of backups you should use and how you should approach backups in order to be sure you're safe. So I talk about ransomware. A feature that used to be in Disk Utility and went away in El Capitan is now back. You can now create a RAID from within Disk Utility in Sierra. Now, that's great. A lot of people really missed the RAID feature in El Capitan, but even so, I think soft RAID is a much better and much more flexible tool if you want to create a software RAID. But anyway, I mentioned that that's back. And I in the interim, I wrote this book on Parallels Desktop, and in the process of writing that book, I learned some things about how Parallels Desktop works with various kinds of backups. And I realized that earlier versions of my backups book didn't quite tell the right story. So I amended and corrected and enhanced my discussion of dealing with backups with Parallels. So that's the stuff that's new besides the Sierra stuff in the backups book. The only other really interesting change I made to the maintaining book was I got some feedback that it wasn't entirely obvious that the repair permissions command in disk utility had gone away with El Capitan, so I made that more obvious. In the troubleshooting book, I added a note about the fact that if you reset your NVRAM or your PRAM, you hold down Command Option PR when you restart, and that solves certain sorts of problems. That also disables Find My Mac. Adam Engst had an article about this in Tidbits. So I added a sort of warning about that. If Find My Mac is important to you, you might want to turn it back on afterwards. And something that I had not noticed, but back in 10.11.3 or something, so several releases ago, Apple removed a feature from Keychain Access called Keychain First Aid. And I used to recommend this as a way of repairing your keychain and solving certain problems, and I didn't even notice when it disappeared. Well, it disappeared, and so I say, you can't do that anymore, but here are other ways to deal with keychain problems. And then in speeding up your Mac, really just a couple of minor things like Apple. I have some things about Apple Mail in that book, and Apple has slightly changed the locations of certain things in Sierra. And I had some minor errors in my process for migrating to an SSD, which I've corrected. So those are basically the changes. None of them are huge things, but I hate having things be out of date. I hate having things not correspond to reality, and I also hate getting email saying, "Hey, wait a minute, this doesn't work the way you say it works." So, and I do get email. I get lots of email. So. So these 4 books are now good for, I hope, a while.
Joe, take just a second for us. I don't think we want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but when you talk about ransomware and encryption, talk a little bit about that kind of encryption versus the kind of encryption that FileVault does. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that engaging FileVault does not protect you from ransomware because it's already encrypted.
Right. So FileVault works a very low level. It basically ensures that anything that macOS is writing to your disk at all, anywhere, is encrypted and decrypted as it's being read. So it's completely transparent. It is just happening at a very low level. It's not on the file level. It's on kind of a disk level. And there are some other third-party utilities that do virtually the same thing. Ransomware does not operate on the disk level, it operates on the file level. So you'll just have this background process churning, and it'll encrypt file after file after file after file. So regardless of whether the container itself, the disk or SSD, is encrypted with FileVault, it really doesn't matter, because as long as your Mac is unlocked, if this malware has insinuated itself into your system, it can still attack the individual files. So those would have to be decrypted before the larger container being decrypted makes any difference at all. And unfortunately, having FileVault enabled will not protect you in any way against this sort of malware. As I said, it's a type of malware that is very, very rare on Macs. There are some forms of it. It's much, much more common on Windows, but it exists, and it is likely to exist in more forms and in greater quantity in the future. So it's because it's malware, all the usual warnings about, don't click links in email messages, don't download things from untrusted sites, don't let apps run on your Mac that you aren't sure you know what they are and where they came from. And again, Apple has some protection features built in, but you have to not bypass them. and and there are obviously some cases in which running anti-malware software is a smart idea too. So you have to take the appropriate measures to protect yourself. The ways of protecting yourself against ransomware are really exactly the same as protecting yourself against viruses and Trojan horses and so forth, with the additional aspect that backups, great backups, multiple backups, backups that go far back in time and that are stored off-site, all those good things become all the more important.
Yeah, multiple backups, Time Machine theoretically might be able to take you back, at least for some files, back beyond the date of infection. So there are a lot of different options you have here, but once again, it's one of those things where you just have to educate yourself just a little bit, because even Apple can't protect you and make it all perfect as much as we'd like to believe that they can. There are just too many bad guys out there.
Yeah, and I mean, there are bad guys. I do have to say, though, you are your own worst enemy when it comes to backups. And I've mentioned this a number of times before, how Apple geniuses have told me that people that come in very rarely back up their Macs, and how depressing that is because Apple has made it so easy to do. And then there was this story recently in the news, a guy in Louisiana, his house was burning and he ran back into his house to grab his laptop that had 2 completed novels on it. And everybody in my Twitter stream just did a collective, seriously? Yep. You ran into a burning house. That was a better solution to you than backups.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
anyway,
you are your own worst enemy when it comes to backups.
Well, it's the classic thing. None of us think it can happen to us.
Yeah.
And now the burning house, hopefully it won't happen to too many of us. But, bad hard drives and unfortunate incidents regarding plumbing in homes and that involve a lot of water, all kind of things that can happen that you just think never will. Well, we're into backup discussions and off-site backup discussions, and that's why you need Joe's Joe on Tech Books to make sure. Joe, the other thing we wanted to touch on before we get out of here with this particular interview is the change of kind of model in the way you're handling upgrades and sales of the books. And I'm going to let you run with that.
Sure. So a couple weeks ago, I raised the prices on all 4 Joe on Tech books. They used to be $9.99. And frankly, when I released the books at $10, Adam and Tanya were like, really? You're only going to charge $10? Because like the Take Control version, the backups book, had been $20. And a couple of the others were $15. And they both thought that $10 was weirdly low, and I was like, I want to make. I'm starting a new thing, and I want to build an audience, and I really want to make the books as attractive as possible to as many people as possible. But that sort of runs into certain problems, and one of the problems is that I'd like to have sales from time to time. But if I put a $10 book on sale for, let's say, half off, all of a sudden, the amount of money I'm earning gets really, really small. And if I want to offer a bundle of books, then it just the economics get really weird. And so I decided it was time to reprice the books for what I really think they're worth. And so they're now $14.99 a piece. And this isn't so much I'm raising the price because I'm greedy, but rather I have ended the special introductory pricing, and I'm now pricing them at a level that I think is more realistic. But there are some bright spots other than I will maybe get $5 more a book. One bright spot is all these updates are free. So if you had any previous version of any of these 4 Joe on Tech books, the Sierra updates are absolutely free to you. There are no upgrade fees at all. If you have not already received an email from me, you will, or you can go to the next to last page of the book and click the Check for Updates link and go download the latest version for free. So So there's that. Also, if you don't already have these books, I'm offering now a bundle where you can get all 4 of the books for $39.99. So basically, the retail price $60, but you can have them for $40. So I think that's a pretty good deal. This is my Mac Fitness series. So 4 different aspects of taking care of your Mac, keeping it healthy, fit, running well, backing up, maintaining, that's preventive maintenance, troubleshooting, that's solving problems, and speeding up, that's improving performance. So 4 different aspects of keeping your Mac healthy and fit for a total of $40 if you buy the entire bundle. And I think that's a pretty good deal. And so if you buy the bundle, then the effective price is basically the same as what it was before the price increase.
Okay, so we get, again, I'm going to let you do the 4 because I will miss one. So the 4 that are included in the bundle are?
Backing up your Mac version 2.1, maintaining your Mac version 1.2, troubleshooting your Mac version 1.1, and speeding up your Mac version 1.1. So these are the 4 current Joe on Tech guides, all about keeping your Mac healthy.
And I would venture to say that pretty much everybody out there is going to need at least, in fact, they're going to need all of these books at one time or another. Maybe not all at once, but right. Sooner or later, you're going to have an interest in speeding it up. You're going to need to back it up, et cetera, et cetera. So by all means, the website is?
joeontech.net.
.net.
.net.
with the little nod, yes.
Yes, please. Please get the .net correct, because I have heard reports that people have gone to joeontech.something else and gotten something they really didn't want to see.
Okay, I'm
just going to leave it at that.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that. So joeontech.net.
That's right.
Great. Joe, thanks so much. Congratulations. I mean, another 4 updates all at once, just in time for Sierra to launch. We really appreciate all your work.
My pleasure.
We will be back again soon.
Oh, yes.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. Again, joeontech.net to get this bundle. You just put it in your library. You'll be happier. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit macvoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the Mac Voices blog, the Mac Voices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on Mac Voices magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com, bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.